Daryl Recommends Podcasts is a podcast recommending series and shouldn't be mistaken as a reviewing one. Opinions about each show are my own and should not reflect what each podcast has to offer. Content warnings aside, I believe that if any recommendation in my series interests you, you should give it a chance, regardless of how I personally feel about the show. And now for today's episode of Daryl Recommends Podcasts.
You have one new message. Received Tuesday, December 21st, 1999 at 9:52 a.m.
Hello, boss. Where the hell are you? You were supposed to be here in the food court in uniform and ready to work 37.5 minutes ago. You're not the only idiot I'm training today, you know. And at least the other one has a good excuse. She's a human teenager. Wait, how old does that make her? Satan, I hope she can form full sentences. I honestly have no idea how long it takes for a human to come to maturity. Whatever, you can both be immature together. I'm sure you'll get along great. So, get out of bed, change in your human skin, stop listening to Radio Shed for the 18th hour in a row, whatever the fuck you're doing, and...
5 demons working at a suburban mall encouraging sin and other vices have been given the biggest gig of the millennium to be the opening act for the reckoning and the beginning of a new era for hell. That is, until the band's lead singer goes missing. With time running out and higher-ups looking over their shoulders, the mall rats have to find their singer before their toast. Brimstone Valley Mall is a comedy podcast created by Christian D. Mercurio and is published by Whisper Forge, and asks the question, are Furbies really a product of hell? Well, as somebody who doesn't own a Furby but wants one, I sure hope it is. So, Brimstone Valley Mall is a one-season, 10-episode podcast about demons working at a mall in the year 1999. It's really funny. It's definitely a comedy podcast, more or less not on the horror side. I know the last 2 previous shows that I have recommended have both been horror podcasts. This one is very much a comedy with some horror aspects to it. It has a lot of 2000s-esque humor, very cheesy, but I think it works so well for the show, especially because of the time period it's supposed to be in. And it's done really well. It has a lot of interesting characters in a season finale that I'm dying to have a follow-up for, because although it has a season 1, it does not have a season 2 quite yet. But, I read that they're working on it, so I can't wait. But some of the stuff that I like about the show is, one is just the characters. All the characters are so fun to have on screen. I don't think there's really a character that I don't like having show up. And it's funny because they go into the general thing you kind of expect of a comedy of a character having one personality trait that they tend to amp up, such as Mizrock being a bit of a stick in the mud and Asmarias being this huge flirty character. But they don't tend to just for the first season, they don't focus on that just being the character's personality. They have it set up so well for the development for these characters having the potential to develop, and even just development that happens just in the first season alone. This show has such well-rounded characters right off the bat, and I'm very excited to see how they develop in season 2 when season 2 comes out. The sound design is also very good. I like shows with very good audio. When me and my friend were listening to this, because I actually listened through all 10 episodes of the show with my best friend when we were on a road trip about a bit of time ago, and we were listening to it in the car, and we had no trouble with the audio at all. There's some shows that I like to listen to that don't really have the best sound design when it comes to listening to it via headphones versus listening to it through speakers. And this show works really good. It has very amazing sound. If you're somebody who's new to podcasts and you're kind of looking for something, this show gives me a lot of the vibes of Hell of a Boss, as somebody who has not watched anything but the pilot of Hell of a Boss and doesn't really watch that show at all, because it's not my thing. It feels like Hell of a Boss without feeling like a clone of Hell of a Boss. And I feel like the only reason for that mostly is just comedy about demons in the workspace, which is fine. But I really enjoyed this one. And it's also kind of gives me a bit of that Good Omens vibe too. So if you're a fan of Good Omens, I also would recommend that to you. And if you're somebody who wonders Daryl, why do you keep comparing podcasts to shows? Not everybody who's listening to this might already be listening to podcasts. So I tend to avoid comparing it to other podcasts that I listen to when I do these things. I never really explained that in my Malevolent recommendation when I was comparing it to the SCP universe and to Venom, but that's kind of why I do that. just as a quick side-off. Now getting back to Brimstone Valley Mall, one of the things that I like about it too is it does have queer rep without going into like that whole kind of like early 2000s of, oh, this character likes men. That's the joke. It has one of the main characters is non-binary, and the only explicit romantic relationship in the show so far is a queer relationship. And it's just, yes, queer rep in my podcast is what I love. I love that. Everybody loves that. I do have one issue with the show. It's the same issue that I did have with Malevolent, in which the episodes lack content warnings. Albeit this show isn't like incredibly graphically violent and gory. It does have some minor gore in it that's like very brief. It has like topics of like obviously about hell and stuff, so if you're like sensitive to like that kind of thing, like I figured like when I said that this was a show about demons, if you aren't into like the idea of like hell and Satan and all that, then this obviously isn't a show for you. If that's a thing that doesn't bother you, but you are bothered by like a lot of talk about cannibalism and alcoholism, I would also skip this one. It is a comedy show, but it does, at least the alcoholism part, I feel like it doesn't play too much off of, like, you know, oh, somebody's an alcoholic. That's funny. It's not played like that, so if that's something you're worried about. Also, the show has a lot of sexual language, and I don't think a lot of people who listen to me are anybody who's below, like, high school age, or at least anybody who listens to this is below, like, a high school age. I personally, it has a lot of sexual language, so if you're a minor, please don't listen to this. I have to say that I'm 25, so I recommend this for a mature audience. It's a mature show. It very much has R-rated language, so yeah, please keep that in mind. But getting back to like the stuff I like about this show, one of the things that it does really good is it sets up plot points in clever ways that tend to sneak on you, and it's done really well. The end of the season leaves on a nice cliffhanger that is also a bit of a plot twist. I'm not usually much of a theorist, but I kind of guessed part of the plot twist just before it happened. And usually if something has, like, a plot twist in it, or at least, like, is building up to a plot twist, like, you know, like, if you was, like, watching something like, Knives Out or Glass Onion, which I know is part of the same movie franchise, but I just watched both of those recently, so I am mentioning them, where it's, like, you know there's going to be some kind of twist in it. This sneaks up on you, and it's done very well. It doesn't feel very out of the blue, and it, like, it's, like, once you get to it, you could remember different points, like in previous episodes, all the way up to the first episode, where it's like, oh, it makes sense because of this and that and this and that. And it's just done really well. And it takes a very interesting direction from how the show starts, from from demons being in a band that work at a mall and are just like kind of like, we like being up here even though humans are stupid, but we like being on Earth, to like the direction it goes to by the end of the season. And I find it very interesting, and it's done really, really well. So overall, I definitely recommend this show if you're somebody who wants something that's short, something that's well written, and something with good sound design. Obviously, you know, I just kind of like put in some of the more, I'd say the ones that most commonly popped up, like content warnings if you're sensitive to certain stuff, and something that like has horror themes in it. Other than that, though, this is a really great show. And I'm very excited for season 2. So I definitely will recommend that you go check out the link to the Brimstone Valley Mall website that I'm going to be posting in the description of this video. And if you have any other podcasts that I should add onto my to-listen-to list, please go ahead and do that. I have a couple more that I just recently finished that I will be doing next. And I'm very excited for those. So stick around for that. And I also have my social media linked in the bottom. So if you would like to give me a follow on anything that isn't YouTube, you can go and do that. And so, yeah. Or also stick around here. If you are like, hey Daryl, why haven't you been posting animations a lot recently? I'm kind of waiting for a follow-up on the Hell's Coming With Me video. I'm not saying I got another follow-up to the Hell's Coming With Me video because, as I like mentioning, that Hell's Coming With Me video was just for a video meme. I'm working on a comic that involves that video. You can stick around my other social medias to find that. or you can stick around here because I am working on other videos. It's just slow because 2023 hates me, and so far it's only January. So that's it. Goodbye, and give Brimstone Valley Mall a listen, please, because I spent a lot of time listening to it. A good 6-hour car ride. Fantastic. I like it a lot, so please do it.